the last piece we'll need before we can finish project 1A is how to do generic ALists. Okay. So it's going to look a lot like it did for linked lists, where we're going to add here this thing in the angle brackets. And rather than just show you side by side, let's do it live. Okay, oops, website. Okay. So let's suppose we want to create an A-list not of just integers. Right? What we'll need to do is here add an arbitrary string. So last time I did something funny, like bleep blorp. Okay? This time I'm going to do item. Why item? Well, it seems a little less silly, and it's easier to read. So in this case, we're going to have item. And then here, everywhere we had integer meaning a thing we're storing, we'll put item instead. Okay, new item. Resize item A equals new item, insert back item, get back, and item, and item, and item. Okay, so let's try that out real quick. So what we're going to do is try compiling a list. And we get here immediately is generic array creation. Oh, and also, I didn't null out my item properly. So instead of 0, it's going to be a null. But this is the error that would seem intractable. Generic array creation. Yes, that is what I'm doing. Why is Java treating it as an error? So we'll talk about the details later. But for now, I'll just teach you the ugly fix. Okay? Instead of saying new item, we're instead going to type object. Okay? And here, we're going to put in parentheses for some reason, item bracket. Okay? This should seem like totally bizarre syntax. Okay? Nothing like anything we've seen in Java so far. We have one more to do. Where is it? Oh, here. Okay, so I do this, and we have new object item, and now it should compile. Oh, nope, sorry. Extra new. Now it should compile just fine. Okay, except it says I'm using unchecked or unsafe operations. Okay. I'm going to take away this main here to avoid any issues. So see how it says I have unchecked or unsafe operations? I am going to show you those operations. So it says if I recompile using this flag, it'll tell me what. And in particular, it says unchecked, unchecked, cast. Okay? It does not like this. It will compile. It runs. If I try and run the code, it'll be fine. But Java is scared. It thinks, whatever crazy syntax you're doing here, Josh Hug, I don't like it. Okay? Well, the unfortunate fact is that in Java, doing a cast like this, as we'll learn it's called later, is necessary. There's no easy way around it. And so as a consequence, we're just going to have to deal with having that compiler warning. Okay? So in other words, when creating an array of references to so-called glorps, instead of doing new glorp capacity, you have to do this strange syntax where you do like glorp, brace, new object, cap. Okay? Objects instead of glorp, and then we do this. And it's fine for you to ignore this warning. This is the only compiler warning you should ever ignore in this course. And we'll discuss in a few weeks why it is that this is the case. Okay? So just be aware for now, because I don't want to spend an hour of your life teaching all the ins and outs of generics, we're just going to have to deal with it. Oh, and by the way, video viewers, oops, put that in all caps. But slide folks, you won't have to deal with that. Okay. So the last little thing I want to say about A-lists before we move on is that unlike integer-based A-lists, in this case, we actually want to null out our deleted items. Before I said it doesn't matter if you put a 0 or not, as long as we step size backwards. But when it comes to having objects, in this case, we will really care because of the fact that if we leave a reference, then Java won't be able to destroy an object. So you may remember I've just occasionally said here and there, and we'll talk about this, about garbage collection later formally, but Java, generally speaking, as long as there's a reference to an object that you can reach from any instance variable, it will keep it in memory. So suppose we're storing an array of no loitering sign images. So here's one in Japanese, here is one in English, here's another in English. If we decided we wanted to delete one of these signs, right? So we have an array of, instead of integers, an array of images. If we did not have this null, then there would be an array entry kept pointing at this thing, because this is an array of addresses. And in that case, it would stay in memory. So that process, that idea of keeping references you don't need is sometimes called loitering. Okay, so if that didn't quite make sense, let's see an example. So one way we could possibly delete an item that would be valid from the perspective of you'll get an AList where everything works, would be if I delete something, just decrease the size, but don't null. So this is possibility 1. But the problem here is that even though when we say get back, we'll actually get the appropriate sign, this one is still kept around in memory. We're keeping all of these pixels, and that's a waste of space. So instead, what you should do when you delete is don't just decrement size, but also null out the reference. That is, set this address to null. And in so doing, Java is now free to say, okay, nobody's using this anymore. Look, there's no arrows pointing at it, so I'm free to destroy it, and there's no loitering sign anymore. Okay, no loitering sign, I should say. Okay, so that's everything you need to know for project 1. So get cracking.